Thank you so much, and most welcome to all of you. Her city, isn't that just beautiful? Her city. For me, it is music to my ears. Her city, a necessary change of mindset, a modern, progressive way to organize our common urban environment. Her city. And as was mentioned before, today is UN World Habitat Day. And that's, of course, a perfect day to reflect on the state of our towns and cities and remind the world that all of us have the right and the power and the responsibility to shape the future of our cities and towns. That is not a right for just a few. That is a right for all of us. The theme for this year's World Habitat Day is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. And we know that our cities are responsible for some 70% of global carbon emissions, with transports, buildings, energy, and waste management accounting for the bulk of an urban greenhouse gas emissions. Historically, and up to date, this day, cities have been planned, designed, and governed without the equal engagement of women as decision makers. The exclusion of women from urban planning and land ownership and management has many negative consequences for women and girls in cities. As women and girls make up half of the urban population, do more than half of the work, do the majority of the care work, and are often subjected to sexual and gender-based violence, cities ought to be designed and built with women's and girls' participation and interest in mind. Not in mind, but focus. There is a need for a strong partnership that works together to address the discrimination and exclusion of women expertise in cities, and at the same time offering a way forward to design cities that empower women and girls and include them in all decision-making processes, urban planning and design. I hope that this webinar will inspire everyone listening, from decision makers to young girls in urban areas, to scale up and to support urban development from a girl's perspective. And as segregation and inequality are increasing in many parts of the world, inclusiveness in the planning process of cities and communities is becoming even more important day by day. Only when the diverse expertise and needs of women and men are integrated into urban planning and design will it be possible to form inclusive urban planning procedures, public spaces, and land management. Adopting a gender equality approach meant raising awareness of issues regarding power in public spaces, male violence towards women, and how the city is perceived in terms of violence, a sense of security, and accessibility. And may I also take this opportunity to express and to reach out to responsible politicians in my country, Sweden, and in South Africa, to ambassadors, to CEOs, and other decision makers. Tell them that they must encourage staff and partners to integrate gender perspective into policies, projects, and programs for sustainable urban development. This cannot just be a topic for discussions. That must be action taken out. And that's why mayors, politicians, and others need to address this and take it serious. To the young girls and young women taking part in the project, your ideas matter, and you are shaping your city for a brighter future. Urbanization continues to increase in most places globally, and your ideas can ensure that planning is sustainable and has a foresight that considers your unique needs. The Embassy, we will remain open for continued and strengthened collaboration for improving women's inclusion in the decision-making process for better, safer, and more environmentally friendly urban development. I will express my thanks to and a great appreciate the partners UN Habitat, Global Utmaning, Johannesburg Development Agency, and What If Trust. We are very, very, very pleased with the partnership, and I'm looking forward to hosting more Her City events in the future together with you. Because the city is home to so many of us. It should be welcoming, safe, and sustainable. A place for work, for business, for joy, and for happiness. For everyone, not just for a few. Her city can take us there. So most welcome, and let me encourage all of you, both physically here and virtual participants, audience, to join the conversation and be active partners in this discussion. Once again, most welcome, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for articulating in a very profound way what needs to be done. And I think really it's a call for action. And it is clear to me that you are a champion for gender equality and an enthusiastic supporter for her seat. So excited about that. Just to say that if you are on social media, do tweet and use hashtag HerCity, hashtag World Habitat Day, and then hashtag Urban October, so that you can join in the conversation about everything else that we are talking about. I will now hand over to one of the HerCity partners, Tove Levonen, from the Swedish independent think tank, Global Utmaning. So Tove, if you can give us a sense of HerCity Toolbox, what is it really? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roshi, for that introduction. And I would also like to give a special thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Håkan Juholt for hosting this HerCity event on World Habitat Day, and also joining our mission to build cities together with girls that works for everyone. Can you see my presentation over there? I hope so, because I'm moving on now. Is it working? Yeah, good. Okay, so as Roji said, I'm here from the HerCity team, and my name is Tove Levonen, and I work at the Swedish independent think tank Global Utmaning. And I'm here with my colleagues today from UN Habitat, as well as Global Utmaning, and from the Global Public Space Program, we have Elin Andersdotter and Christelle Lahoud, Chiara Martinuzzi, and also from Global Utmaning, our urban senior advisor, Thomas Melin, myself, and also my colleague, Tove Andreasson Dane. So the vision and mission with HerCity is to involve girls in urban development to make the city better for everyone. And girls plan with a diversity and different needs in mind, and participatory processes are therefore key to plan a city that works for everyone. And if we let citizens that are rarely heard be the experts, our cities and communities will become more inclusive and sustainable. So that's the vision that we work with. Our partners in this is, we have several partners. The project itself, or the initiative, is a joint initiative by UN Habitat and Global Utmaning. It is financed by Vinnova, the Swedish innovation agency, and in collaboration with White Architects Method Kit, the Swedish Union of Tenants, and also Block by Block Foundation. And the whole Her City Toolbox has been developed in close collaboration with a range of multi-stakeholders. So I'll try to put this in context. So this is how a city typically looks like around the world. Too often the city does not work for girls. It is unsafe, dirty, unwelcoming, and inaccessible. And by 2050, 70% of the world population will live in cities. And this brings about enormous challenges, not least in terms of inequality. So among the most vulnerable are young women in socioeconomic vulnerable areas. And research has shown that participation creates opportunities for more inclusive, equal, and sustainable urban development. But there is a lack of knowledge in how participatory urban design and planning should look, and how you involve vulnerable groups in urban development. So here you can see the gender gap in some statistics as well. Women feel unsafe in public spaces worldwide, and 40% of women compared to men have access to the internet in the least developed countries. And women also don't own a mobile phone to the same extent as men, and women do not only cover 23% of the governmental positions worldwide, and many women has also experienced domestic violence at least once. So this is why we wanted to develop the Her City Toolbox. So we started with this initiative in 2017, and it's actually a result of the project called Urban Girls Movement. So we did a global mapping of methods and tools for increased equality and inclusion in urban development in 2017, financed by SIDA. And in the first phase of the Vinnova financing, we did a pilot in Sweden, in Botkyrka, Sweden, a suburb to Stockholm, where we tested some of the tools that we had mapped before. And all these tools and methods that we tried in Fittja also then became the Her City Toolbox when we digitalized them to make them available globally. And here we are now. We launched the toolbox on International Women's Day. So we have 6 months of Her City Toolbox, and we already have 700 users and 60 registered city projects. So it's growing, and that's very fun for us. And here you can see some of our projects. It's 100 initiatives, 700 users in 280 cities in 90 countries worldwide. So currently we have 10 ongoing partnership projects, one of them being in Johannesburg, and others in Stockholm and Gaza and Nairobi and Beirut, just to mention a few. So with this chart, you can see how the users are divided between sectors. The users range from research, civil society, and public sector and private sector. It's quite an even spread on them. So our mission is to promote girls and young women's participation in urban planning and design processes to create sustainable and inclusive cities. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to target groups, we are focusing on girls and young women in socioeconomic vulnerable areas. But Her City also considers the needs of other groups, in addition to the female population, such as refugees and minorities, children and youth, people with disabilities, and the LGBTQI+ community, just to mention a few. So the toolbox itself, it supports urban development from a cost perspective, I said that, and it guides urban actors to implement projects through a step-by-step methodology. We have created a very cost-efficient toolbox that follows a unique process of 9 blocks. It has a digital guide. It's a digital guideline on how to co-plan cities from a girl's perspectives. And the 9 blocks represent 3 phases of urban development process, and it will guide you through an assessment phase and a design phase and also implementation. So the toolbox provides an open and digital accessible platform for all, and it facilitates an ongoing dialogue between professionals and citizens. And the toolbox itself contains a number of activities and steps and digital tools. You can find checklists, calendars, agendas, manuals, and forms and boards, apps, and so on. And Her City integrates tools such as Jamboard, Kobo, Collect, Method Kit, Minecraft, and Sketchfab, and so on. So when you're done with your Her City project, we imagine that the city will look like this instead, being vibrant and accessible and human-friendly. So this is what we imagine it could look like. So as I said, the Her City Toolbox is digital, and you can reach us on several different platforms. You have the website here, hercity.unhabitat.org. And I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tuv. You really highlighted the plight of women in different cities all over the world. And also you told us about the origins of Her City Toolbox and how it can help cities in how they grapple with their challenges. And it really sounds like a wonderful initiative, one that could benefit us from cities in terms of supplementing our existing public participation, city hall approaches and efforts. So now I would like to welcome our first panelists onto the stage. And just to say that there's going to be a time for questions and answers. So if you have like questions, you can jot them down. And also those who are watching us virtually, you can use the chat box or Q&A boxes. And also you can go via social media platforms because we are interested in what you have to say. So if I can welcome the first panelist, Kolisile Sithole from the City of Johannesburg, and Gail Steiger from What If Trust, and Nancy Sithole, Didintle Badise, Siwa Mareku from Her City Deep Sleuth Project, and Thomas Menlin will join us online from Block by Block Foundation. Over to you. You can sit here, Gail.
Come sit here. Come sit this one.
Thank you so much. I will start with you, Koli. Please tell us more about Her City project in Deep Sleuth. How does it fit in with the City of Johannesburg strategies, policies, initiatives, and what is it that as the city you want to achieve?
All right. Thank you very much. Can I take off my mask? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Ayanda, for the lovely opening, as well as to the ambassador for welcoming us, as well as providing a platform for this project to be discussed today. So my name is Kolisile Sithole. I am from the Johannesburg Development Agency. I've also been requested today to provide a brief introduction or background to the project that we are doing. So maybe just a bit about the JDA. It is an entity of the City of Johannesburg Metropolitan Municipality. It has been in existence now for 20 years. And from its inception, it has put in the front innovation in all the projects that it does for the City of Johannesburg. And in this instance, we are also, through the projects that we are doing, introducing highly collaborative approaches to public participation to also enhance then responsiveness from communities that we work with on the projects that we deliver. We are working with UN Habitat and a range of their partners, as well as Neil from What If Trust, which is an organization that is based in Deepsmith on this project titled Indlela Yabafazi. Indlela Yabafazi, loosely translated, means a route for women. And what the project is about, it seeks to center the participation or involvement of young girls for the planning and design of safe routes that link public spaces in the community of Deepsmith. It has already been mentioned that we are using the Her City Toolbox for this project, which has been developed by UN Habitat as well as Global Utmaning. You may ask yourself why Deepsmith? So Deepsmith is located at the northern edge of the City of Johannesburg's municipal boundary. The city then, in terms of the SDF, the Special Development Framework, identifies communities such as Deepsmith as marginalized communities. They are communities that are highly deprived. Deepsmith is an informal settlement, meaning that it has a lot of inadequate housing, has little to no access to public environments that are safe and accessible, and just a general lack of public amenities as well. We also know that in South Africa, we do have a high rate of gender-based violence. And it has also been reported that public spaces are the second most common place in the country for the occurrence of rape cases. So therefore, that means that public spaces in the city, in the country, are forbidden spaces. They are limited to victims of gender-based violence. They're limited for access to young girls and women and other marginalized groups. It therefore means that it's important that the city, governments, and other partners center the development of communities such as Deepsmith. They've already discussed how the Hair City then has been structured to fit into the project. Up to date, we are on the third block of the Hair City Toolbox, which required the completion of a site-specific assessment. Through Gail's hard work and her team, we have been able to gather about 35 young girls and women between the ages of 9 years and 21 years of age that will be participating on the project for the reimagining of the community of Deepsmith and the public spaces in Deepsmith. As such, then, the girls will be involved in a series of workshops and events where they will be collecting data, which was completed in the past weekend, that will inform them planning processes, as well as design processes for the development of concepts based on, Tivo mentioned, the outlook or perspective of a young girl. Those will obviously be in guidance with the professional team that we have made available for the project. So they will be guided and inspired as well in case they have any future aspirations of ending up in the development planning space. We will also then take the concepts that will be developed by the young girls and women into a testing event that will entail the application of temporary measures for of application of the designs that they would have developed, which is commonly called a tactical urbanism event. Ideally, however, it is the wish of the city, investment or budget allowing, that the project would be implemented in the short to medium term. The girls will also, at the end of the project, be given certificates as well as letters of recognition for having participated in the project. We will also then, along with the professional team in Habitat, be completing a document that will provide lessons learned and documenting the project in general for other cities in the world, like Johannesburg. The Swedish example has been provided for us. We also would like to contribute to the body of knowledge of this wonderful project. The JDA, however, is already starting to look at where in other projects that we are involved in, can start applying this process of really placing girls at the center of development processes. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Polly. In terms of participation, how are you engaging with the community in the project in Diepsloot? Thank you.
I'd like to just give you a little bit of context. We've been in Diepsloot since 2013. And as an organization, we opted to be there and hyperlocate there rather than work across various townships. We felt that we could make a better impact in one township than sort of have a small diluted impact in a number of different townships. And that has really bode well for us. We're very connected into the community. I'm very proud that they call me Sister G. And it's something I'll hold dear for a very, very long time. And so girls and women have always been at the heart. We're an all girls team, yet we struggle to get girls and women to come on a lot of the programs. We often promise donors 40 to 50% girl and woman component to a program. We often get 25 to 30%. And that is because of a lot of the points mentioned by the ambassador. The girls are the carers. They've often, the parents are, go and get a real job. What's this development stuff that you want to do? And so we are always pushing really hard to get girls to be in the programs that we run. But I think the other thing that for us is really important and why we partnered and that's helped us in this project is we work really hard to bridge the digital divide. So digital poverty is real. Digital poverty is hugely, COVID has just blown it wide open. While everybody else was struggling with their children learning online, children in Diepsloot were just not learning. They were sitting at home, no books, no computers, no devices, no data. And that's just heartbreaking. So when we heard about this project, we grabbed it with both hands. In 2017, Ericsson, who's one of our partners, built a tech hub for us. And in that tech hub, we work diligently to bridge this digital divide. And so getting to your question of how did we engage? Because we're so rooted in the community, we went to community-based organizations. We worked with the Residents Association, we worked with community-based organizations. And then we also went to participants in previous programs. So we've run programs called Digital Labs with Ericsson, interestingly as well. We recruited within that program. We recruited from community-based organizations. We also have Dr. Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots program, which runs in Diepsloot with young people who are environmental ambassadors, who are passionate about the environment. So we had a wide range of places to recruit from. But we gave the girls the opportunity. You know, sometimes what happens in a township is that people come when you say they must come. And we didn't want that. We wanted girls to come because they wanted to come, because they wanted to be a part of this program. And so we ran some briefing sessions and we told the girls about it. And we said, you sign up, you tell us, you know, what it is that, why you want to be part of the program. And of course, because we were working with quite young girls, many of them under 18, we also had to get parental permission. So we are very careful with girls. We apply really good governance when we work with girls and young women, but we are really proud to say we have close to 40 girls and young women who are signed up. And for us, the most exciting thing about this is going to be the digital piece. I know there's lots of walks and lots of, you know, but even the walks were based on technology. And for us, that is just vital. And we hope even beyond this project to be working with the girls. I mean, I'm so excited about the Minecraft training tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight. And hopefully the girls are going to be as excited to learn new technologies and new, you know, new ways of doing things. So yeah, for us, this is a big digital project, but that has amazing other offshoots. It has environmental offshoots. I'm so delighted to meet our climate activists today because we know many girls in the walk on Saturday were incensed about the running water in the streets. We're wasting water and the stray animals and the lack of trees and the lack of plants. I couldn't be happier. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kate. I'm so excited to hear that. And it's an interesting point that you are bringing in, that of digital poverty. And I think really COVID shown us that it's an issue. And we saw in university students really grappling. But it's amazing how you describe it in a community like Diepsloot, even beyond just universities. And it's really important to have like tools like city Toolbox, Minecraft, and others like Hobo Toolbox. We're so excited about this project, and I'm happy to hear that it has so many benefits already. You can see the benefits beyond just digital ones. Now we're going to Diepsloot. Nancy, Didi, and Siwa, we are so privileged to have you here today. And thank you for coming all the way from Diepsloot. Part of what excites me today and part of why this conversation is very important to have you in is that sometimes as government and other sectors, we talk about perfect solutions for Diepsloot, you know, and other places. And we say that we need to do A, B, C, and D. But today we are here to talk about this project. And I won't give you anything. I won't give you a specific question. Anything you want to share. Can I start with you? Yes, yes.
Greetings to the house blood. I go by the name of Tabitha Radisa. I decided to participate. We are afraid that anytime they can rape, kidnap, or kill you just for nothing. In Diepsloot, there is lack of opportunities. As girls, there are many girls in our area that are sitting there with their qualifications, knowledge. They are sitting because there is lack of opportunities. They can't do anything. We have lack of access to infrastructure such as libraries, playgrounds, parks, things like that, because in Diepsloot, opportunities are limited. There is only one library. We don't have access to parks. So that contributes to Diepsloot being a corrupt area because youth are staying only because they don't have anything to spend their time on. They just sit thinking about doing cruel things like smoking, destroying, and doing things that are not okay for their future.
So I think that at the end of this program, there will be a highly increased equality as girls will be able to walk freely on street without being afraid, without having the fear that anytime you will be killed, kidnapped, we will have our own happiness. We will be free in our own country, and we will be able to create a better habitat for the new coming generations and keep our area sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Hi, my name is Yogan Pillay, and thank you so much for this opportunity that you have provided us. So the reason why I decided to be a part of this project is because, wow, where do I even start? So basically, why I decided to be a part of this project is because I've lived in Detroit for the past 21 years, and I've seen a lot of problems that we face. And I've always wanted to be a part of the people who are making the solutions, but then because I'm still young, I don't know where to go or who to talk to or what to do. I also like the fact that this project has provided a woman empowerment because a lot of the times women's voices are silenced or they're not considered. So what I would love to see, I would love to see there be more facilities for the youth so that the youth are, so that they cater to their talent. They also provide job opportunities. They also provide more skills that they can learn so that they can use it in a workspace. And also I would like to see there being less littering, just like Ms. Gail mentioned, that while we were doing the walk last week, there was littering, there was sewage leaking. And what was going through my mind when I saw that, especially since they were like almost on every street that we were passing by, what was going through my mind during that was, what about the kids? I saw a lot of children that were unattended by their parents. And what if they don't know about the dangers of being near a sewage or like, children are very curious. So of course they could potentially go to a sewage leaking and they see water and like maybe just want to see what it is. And that's not healthy for them. So yeah, that's why I would really like for there to be a change.
Thank you so much, Siwa. We're now coming to Eunice. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Kamukhala Sisitole, and the reason I've decided to be part of this program is that I've seen a lot of heart-wrenching things happening in the place that I've grew up 13 years of my life, and those things are not good things, and some things I'm not proud to say them. And I would like to see Diepsloot be a better place because I don't want to run away from the place that I grew up. I want to live the rest of my life there and make my children grow up right there in front of me and the whole community that I grew up in. And the things that made me like join this program is that some things that are happening in Diepsloot, like littering and stuff like that, they don't happen just because people like to do them. They happen because people don't have knowledge and are not taught and they know nothing about what they are doing. So they would be better if there were facilities about teaching people, grown-ups and kids about littering and vandalizing things, their outcomes and results. Like there, I would like for Diepsloot to have more facilities where children could go and spend their time doing things they like and better things to do than wasting their lives and futures around. So what I hope that would come out of this project at the end of it, I would like to see my point being seen and
my dreams being visualized, because I dream for Diepsloot to be a better place. And I believe that with my help, it could be a better place.
Wow.
Thank you so much, girls. And wow, what can you say after that? What I like the most is the fact that all of you talk about problems, challenges, and difficulties. But at the same time, you are telling us about how much you love your community, how much you love Diepsloot, which is something I think as city practitioners, we should latch onto as we're continuing to work in these communities. And you are challenging us. We come to these communities, but you are not hearing your voices. We are not finding you. We are having meetings in City Hall, but we are not in the City Hall. But I think today, having her City Toolbox and Minecraft and other tools is an opportunity for us as cities to really encourage you to come to the table and really hold us accountable. So thank you so much again for being here. So the last speaker for this panel is Thomas Mellin. He's joining us online. I think Thomas, the Hair City Toolbox is gathering a range of digital tools. We've already heard about Minecraft, the block by block approach. And can you tell us how the use of Minecraft in different cities, how it has built capacity of city practitioners, of communities, and other partners in the long run, not just in terms of a city toolbox process, but for city making in general. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. I'm guessing a little what you actually said there because I don't hear you very well, but it's nice to be on this panel, and thank you very much to the previous presentations that really paints a good picture of where we are. I think that very many of these problems that we look upon in cities, they're not new problems. These are things that has been there for many years and has been experienced by several generations. But we live in a new time right now. So we can actually work with the problems in a new way. And let me start off by talking a little about the fact that these projects like Her City is built on the fact that we now have data. And we now have digital maps, and we now have the possibilities to collect the information. And the data flows have increased thousands of times after the last 20 years. And data has become so common. We have libraries of reading on the net, and we have supported networks of friends and colleagues, and we have kind of online exchange of things. We have connections with far away, but also with close by. Help in endangered situations and documentations of things we need to document, good or bad. So data and ICT allows us to see life, but it's also to see our cities through a new lens. And I must say that I'm a little sometimes sad about the fact that there is so much data which is still untapped. Data is there, but it's not used. And it's not equally used. Generally, it's undersupply and underused for social aspects, for things that actually improves life. Who is it that actually claims that they understand and produce this knowledge that we are supposed to use? And what are the consequences? That it's actually groups I think they look very male and they look very technical. And I think that data can improve lives when it's effectively used to generate the insight and the decisions that we need. But data captured and analyzed today, they has to reflect the needs of all. This has already been mentioned a little today in the other presentations, that it is not shared equally. And The systems that we have today, they are not really set up in a way so that you have the time and the space to meaningfully make citizens co-creators. And specifically not people who live and work in the informal sector. Very many of these tools that we are talking about are really created for the formal part of the society. And I will actually underline the fact that sometimes the formal part is the smaller part. And again, I think that it's a little important, and we actually have to work with the fact that data is undersupplied and underused when it comes to helping girls and women. And as the ambassador said, this is half of the world's population. It's not an add-on group. So how can it be that this is still the case? Now, Her City and its Toolbox is contributing to inclusive and gender-balanced urban development processes, and that is kind of really the aim. So to make this possible, there is a need for better data literacy and better culture of the data use. And we have to, in some way, bridge the gender data gap. Unless gender is mainstreamed into national statistics and data stream, it's going to be scarce and gaps will persist. And then I think that what is very interesting and very important is that the young generation are usually quicker to pick up new technology and to find different previously not thought of ways of using this. The innovative new generation will help in creating the tools. And as in Her City, we have many of them. And the one has been referred to as the Minecraft, which is one of the most popular computer games in the world, still after 10 years of existence. It has even developed beyond a game. So now there is Minecraft in school, and there's Minecraft in town planning, and so forth. Interesting thing with Minecraft is that it's a construction environment, which is different from most other computer games because you build rather than break up. And you also build in teams. So you can have joint efforts and you can construct your vision in front of you on the screen. So Her City is kind of challenging the power structures which is currently in place by introducing this participatory thinking, by introducing a computer game language which is understood by the community. So then Her City is using community gathered information and it's also gathered with digital tools like the Minecraft, for example. So these cities that will be based on this development will obviously be better for all, more sustainable, more resilient and inclusive, based on a participatory process. So the suggestions will then at the end of the program come as recommendations to Johannesburg on how actually a feminist and smart city can look. And then we hope that this is going to be used in all the suburbs that you also have in the country as such. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It was really interesting to hear about Minecraft. Actually, in the city of Johannesburg, we have made use of it. And with my colleague or former colleague, Nicolette, I'm sure she's going to talk a bit more about that. Minecraft was very powerful in one of the path upgrades. It helped us to encourage young people, girls from primary school, but also those who are living on the streets. It is a very powerful tool. You are running a bit out of time. So we'll now turn to the audience for some comments. We have only 10 minutes we've had like powerful speakers here. So I will take maybe 3 questions or comments or encouragements for the girls from Ditchlet. Can someone help me with the mic? Okay. Or maybe we can, okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Didi Ntletu. I'm from the International Federation of Red Cross, and we thank Ambassador for this invite. And yeah, it was just really great to hear the good work that you're doing in Deep Sleep as an organization that is the largest humanitarian organization that responds to disasters and hopes to reduce disasters. We're very pleased to hear that as part of this initiative, there's a component around trees and environmental care, which is very key to our mandate to see how we can reduce risk, reduction in urban settings, especially like in the, the Sowetos, the informal settlements, that Alexandra, the Deep Sloots. Because I quickly did a research and I saw that in Deep Sloot, there's been incidents where there's flooding and kids got swept away and all that. So, I mean, from our side, we're just saying would love to collaborate with you, especially around, risk reduction. Right now, we've embarked on an initiative that looks to plant trees Africa-wide. And yeah, so, I mean, would love to have further discussions with the organization to say how we can work together. But keep up the great work. And ladies, we're very delighted, that you are taking part in this. And keep it up. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Didi. Are there questions? Yes, ma'am. Oscar, are there questions online?
My name is Nolo Andlemade, and I'm here representing the Swedish Institute Alumni Network. I think it was 2000 for the city of Joburg, check the backlogs on municipal services. And I noticed the very problems that we're speaking about here today. That was 2006. And I'm just wondering how successful this project will be without bringing all the players that are needed to collaborate on this. Joburg Water, Pick It Up, the government departments, Department of Water, projects like the community work programs and EPWP. I think government is doing a lot of work, and other organizations such as yourselves, ma'am, but sometimes you're not talking to one another, such that projects don't speak to each other. They don't speak to what the young ladies were talking about, what they need. They're not listening to what the needs of the community are to make cities safe for them, to make cities work for them, to make cities sustainable for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolwazi. I think the first point, Nolwandle, sorry. I think the first point was a comment, and I'll give you, Koli, to talk about how we are involving other stakeholders, city departments and other spheres of government, because it's in one of the steps of her tool, of her city toolbox. We've got a question from Dr. Pillay. How do we take ideas and toolbox to scale, to mobilize the voices and actions of girls to engage in urban development? So I'll only take those questions. Can I take yours in the second round? Thanks. Over to you, Paul.
That's quite an important point. We do tend to lack in terms of making sure that as departments internally, within cities, within town councils, that we collaborate with one another when we not only develop projects, but in terms of just general management and urban management of communities as well. So we do take that point and we take it seriously as the JDA, that in every project that we do, we introduce it to the region. That includes all departments that would be at the core face of urban management in the community. So we introduce it to the region who would be based closer to the community, where managers as well as officials have quick access to the communities. We also then, through the project, also introduce co-production, co-creation, but as well as co-management of projects. That it's not only just the city's role to ensure the management of communities and projects that are developed, but as part of the projects that we developed, hence we introduce also collaboration with communities, that they also become part, they've already spoken to it, become part of the solution in management of these projects as well. So we do try, I know we do lack a lot of in it, in making sure that we work together as as departments, and even more so when it goes out into different spheres of government, but we do ensure and try our best going forward that we involve all departments as part of projects, not only for collaboration, but for management of these projects as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Koli. Just to respond to your question, Yogan, Koli has partly responded to that, but to say that in Ditlud we are piloting, and as Koli mentioned that we are going to involve other partners, both state and non-state, and then hopefully we'll be able to upscale the initiative across Johannesburg, but also with the involvement of other partners like South African Cities Network. We are hoping that it will be upscaled across South Africa, but even across the continent. So now I'd like to thank the first panelist, and thank you so much for your insightful presentations, and all the best, guys. Okay, so now we will welcome our second panelist. We've got Dr. Yogan Pillay, who is joining us online. Dr. Pillay is a country director of South Africa at the Clinton Health Access Initiative. We also have Nicolette Pingo from South African Cities Network, and Akona Kotyeni, who's a South African female climate activist. And we've got Sibongile Fisher lastly, who's an artist. Can you please come onto the stage? Okay, I'm going to start with Nicolette. Sibongile, is Sibongile there? Okay, I'm going to start with Nicolette. Nikki, you have extensive experience of working with other cities. You are working with South African Cities Network, but also previously you worked in the inner city as a city practitioner. You worked really closely with vulnerable groups. And so I'm interested to hear from you. We're talking about inclusion and inclusion of girls and young people. So what do you think are the social and economic benefits of inclusion, not just for the girls and young people, but for society at large? Thank you.
massive organization is determining these so I'm going to start with two very simple statements. The first one saying that and that means that the voices of the powerful have many states and many systems around the world. In South African context, that has really been heightened by a history of land disposition, colonialism, and toxic space of time. So really, the project of South Africa is to improve the whole government and all society. But beyond that, we know that inclusion has some real impacts for individuals, for neighborhoods, and for society as a whole. I know Dr. Pillay will speak a little bit more around the health and social benefits, but from my own experience, having worked in the inner city of Johannesburg, specifically on public spaces, co-designing those public spaces, using tools like Minecraft to really deeply listen to communities, we found that we see multiple social benefits, in particular around crime and safety, not only violent crime, but also safety around pedestrian access and really ensuring that we put pedestrians and create walkable cities at the heart of our work. Health and physical, both physical and mental outcomes, in certain instances, educational outcomes. The Johannesburg Development Agency did a fantastic project where we worked with 5 schools in Yeoville called Nglulamiti routes to co-design a safe route so that children could walk to and from school on a daily basis in a safe way. And also critically neighborhood improvements. So how do you improve a city? One block at a time, really listening deeply to those who live in that, that particular area. And then in terms of an economic perspective, I would be remiss from the South African Cities Network if I didn't say that we are in really fiscally constrained times in our cities in South Africa. And so it's very important that our limited resources are targeted to achieve the right outcomes. And the best way to do that is to include those who we hope to improve their everyday lives. Operationally, operational budgets are, we know, very difficult for many cities. And we know that co-designing, co-implementation, and co-management of spaces saves cities money in the long term. And a wonderful example of that is Congela Park in eThekwini, where they worked with the homeless population to really revitalize a park and make use of that homeless population in an urban agriculture initiative. I think it's also important to say that South Africa has one of the largest global public employment programs, and that's the Expanded Public Works Program. And it can definitely admit that there's work to be done in terms of extending that program and ensuring that there's sustainable jobs, but it has been a really important contributor to enable communities to be part of building their own assets, community assets. And in particular, employing women in that program has been really important. So we have a paper, please have a look out for it. It'll come out in the next couple of months before the end of this year from the South African Cities Network, which really highlights the benefits of employing women. And we found that in particular, women remit whatever they earn to rural households, and they also play a particular role in supporting the health and educational outcomes of children. So there's multiple benefits to co-developing cities and including the most vulnerable in the design of our cities. In South Africa, it's vital. In order to build social cohesion, we really need to come together and hear the voices of the most vulnerable. And that really will build our new South African public. Thanks, Ayanda.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for really spelling out these gains and benefits. Sometimes we talk about inclusion in an abstract manner, we write about it in our strategies and policies. But today we are hearing panelists really spelling it out, what it really means in simple terms. So thank you for that. So next we have Dr. Yogan Pillay. He's joining us online. And when he left the public sector, he was referred to as a true servant of the public. And it was because of his approach, his values. Really, Yogan was always pushing inclusive models and of delivering healthcare services and equitable access to healthcare. So Yogan, we would like to hear from you. What are the gains of inclusion and participation in terms of health? And when we talk about health, we mean health holistically, both in terms of physical health and mental health. Over to you.
Ayanda, it's very nice to see you again. I haven't seen you for a while. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thanks to the ambassador and UN Habitat and Partners for the invitation to me to share a few thoughts in the next 5 minutes. It's not an accident that the theme of World Habitat Day is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world, not only because of COP26, which will be held in Glasgow in November, but also because of the growing urgency of climate change. And what we do know, that climate change, and there's enough evidence for this already, that climate change affects women far more than it affects men. So we have a real responsibility to take the right decisions sooner than later, or else we will be in a worse position as we go along. I also want to say that in South Africa, October is Mental Health Month. And I think when we talk about health, you're absolutely right. We have to talk about health holistically. Often we refer to health, when we refer to health, we refer to physical health only. And we know that COVID has had a significantly negative impact, not only on the number of deaths that have occurred around the world, as well as in South Africa, but also on people's psychosocial and mental health. So we've got to think about the impact of mental health as well as physical health on girls and young women. This event comes at a very important time in South Africa too, with the imminent local government elections. And we need to ensure that the issue of carbon-free South African cities are placed on the agenda of political parties. I must confess, even though I've not been following very carefully the agenda of each of the political parties that are contesting the local government elections, but I'm not sure that I heard much about climate change and carbon neutral or carbon free cities and how political parties who are contesting the elections will take us towards a carbon free environment. I also haven't heard anything about the issue of cities being friendly to girls and women in the manifestos of our political parties. And I think we should collectively find ways of getting this on the agenda, even though it's rather late, for the current electioneering that's going on right now. The benefits of inclusion of girls and women that live in cities and in every corner of the country are numerous. And let me say that there is an estimate that by 2030, 2 billion people globally will be living in informal settlements. And we can see that as a truism in South Africa as well. So when we talk about inclusion, clearly we need to talk about inclusion not only in the suburbs of South Africa, South African cities, but also in the informal settlements. And we have a growing number of people moving from rural areas into our urban areas. The issue of elimination of sexual, interpersonal, and gender-based violence must surely be one of the most important priorities in our country and in many countries of the world. And it's fairly clear that sexual, gender-based violence, as well as interpersonal violence, is on the rise, and women and girls in particular bear the brunt of it. We know too that sexual and gender-based violence is associated with both HIV as well as injuries and trauma, apart from its impact on social and economic aspects of people's lives. And we know that women are more severely affected by HIV in not only South Africa, but Southern and Eastern Africa as well. In an article I recently co-authored, we showed that there's an estimated 210,000 new HIV infections annually, every year in South Africa, of which 135,000 are adolescent girls and young women. So 64% of new infections annually are found in adolescent girls and women. And of these, 57,000 are acquired by girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 24, much like the young people who spoke before me in panel 1. So in this cohort of 15 to 24-year-old girls and young women in South Africa, we have an estimated 156 new HIV infections every day. So by the end of today, we would have had another 156 15 to 24-year-old adolescent girls and young women acquiring HIV in our country. That must be a national tragedy. Access to contraception and family planning services are obviously key to women because unplanned and unwanted pregnancies add to the burden of women largely, and the burden they face in respect of leaving school early in the case of teenage pregnancies, not being gainfully employed to support themselves and therefore being dependent on men, are critical factors that surely make access to contraception and family planning key. According to the UNFPA, fertility rates in Southern and Eastern Africa, these range from 2.4 children per woman in some countries like Mauritius, Seychelles, Botswana, and South Africa, to a very high 5.2 children per woman in countries like Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia. So we have quite a range of fertility rates on our continent. And it's fairly clear that unless we bring down fertility rates by making access to contraceptives easier, empowering women, providing additional educational opportunities, etc., we are going to have an increased number of children that are required by women to take care of. And we know that women are the major caregivers. So, and that puts an additional both physical and mental health, have physical and mental health impacts on women. Finally, we have to make cities safe and safer for girls and women. Women should not be harassed at work, when traveling to work or for leisure, or when walking on our streets. We should add this to the agenda of political parties currently contesting our local government elections. So the amount of work that our politicians need to do, have to do, is fairly phenomenal, it's fairly great. And they would have to partner with communities, especially girls and young women, in order to make all of these things, whether it is decreasing HIV infections, improving the mental health of girls and young women, increasing access to contraceptive, or making our streets safer for girls and young women. All of these need collaboration between politicians, especially at local government level, as well as communities that they serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yogan. It's interesting to see how you've weaved through different dimensions of what it means to build sustainable, but also more healthier cities. You moved from issues around safety, talking about the missing middle, but also issues of climate change. I like that you've really made a clarion call for all of us to be vigilant and listen to our politicians in terms of their manifestos, if they are talking about the things that are important and the things that we are grappling with in our societies. I think lastly, the issue of girls between 15 to 24 is really something that we should look into as cities when we develop our long-term strategies. How do we involve them? I think the UN Habitat or the UN Women, they call them the missing middle. Sometimes they get lost. So I think partners who are here today, is a call really to make sure that we include them. We now move to Akona. Akona often challenge us as government and like push us and say that we are not taking climate change seriously. And when you advocate for inclusion, you push citizens, you know, to stand up and call us out. So I'm interested to hear from you when we include communities in planning and designing local environments, what is it that you are going to gain? Over to you. Okay.
Thank you, Ayanda, and thank you to the ambassador and the partners for inviting me today. I've been listening to a lot of people mentioning a lot of environmental issues, so I had to take a few notes and integrate it to what I was also going to speak about. But I think I want to start with the point you just mentioned about inclusion. And I think for someone who has a background in the social sciences, before I moved into the environmental space, it's very important to choose the language we use when we speak amongst ourselves and also with our leaders. So in public management, they usually discourage the use of inclusion and rather collaboration and partnership, because when you include someone, you're meaning that they're from the outside. But if you're moving from a bottom-up approach, you're allowing people to co-create what they envision their cities to become. So I saw that in the program as well. And also today we've been mentioning inclusion a lot, but I think maybe we should start looking at it from a bottom-up approach of how can we collaborate and co-partner with people who already live in these areas, rather than including them into an agenda which was already developed by the government. So I think that was just a background point I wanted to start with, but I chose 3 points or 3 areas I want to speak about today. There's a lot I can tap on, but these are what I thought would be impactful to this discussion. The first is the racial history of South Africa, racial, economic and social and gender historic background. The second part is the intersectionality. So that ties up then to how can we integrate the different social and economic, ecological and also political issues. Then I'm going to move on to the whole collaboration and then inclusion part. So with the historic aspect of South Africa, we must account for colonization and then the apartheid period. And during those times, and the ambassador mentioned this in his speech, women were not included in the planning of a lot of our cities. And you can see in so many of the cities, even how they structured, it was particularly to isolate and exclude a lot of people of color and women from the cities. So a lot of women who migrated to urban areas, it was specifically for domestic employment if you weren't a white woman in the city. So I think when we start with including, or not even including, partnering with women and collaborating with young women from today, we can't just take this present generation. We need to start with the intergenerational ties of why so many young women are living in informal cities rather than suburbs and main cities in towns. So I think then by tying that whole political and historic aspect to the conversation, we can look at the fact that a lot of women migrated into informal settlements to serve a purpose, for a domestic purpose, or work in factories. And then most of the time, so many of them left children and family members in the rural areas. So in order to incorporate young women now in the cities, we need to go fetch the information and the history from the rural area, the rural women and young women who are still in those areas, and as well as the women in informal settlements. So in the environmental sphere, you usually find people saying that they don't want to take part in environmental issues because it's for white privileged people. And a lot of us are trying to destigmatize that, and we're trying to take away that that bad idea of separating people from what environmental issues are. A lot of people mentioned waste, people mentioned droughts, people mentioned floods, but a lot of people don't want to, or not don't want to, but never see the ties between ecological and social issues. And I think that's what we also need to debunk in the process, that the floods, the droughts, the water pollution you're going through in your urban areas or in your informal settlements have a lot to do with air pollution, water pollution, and all the other environmental issues. So I would like to encourage a lot of the young ladies I heard speaking about waste issues and other environmental issues to also look into the environmental activism space, because there's a lot of other young people, and it's mostly young females, who are leading this movement of integrating the day zero droughts in the Western Cape and other water-related issues, as well as other natural resources, into the social platforms as well. So I think moving from the historic and then tying up now and debunking the whole divorce between the natural and the social sciences, you can see that basically economic, social, political, ecological issues are intertwined. And that's why they're called wicked problems, because in the past, government used to attack each issue individually in silos. And I think that's what one of the questions asked in the audience: how can we integrate government departments? And that's where it starts. It's to address an urban river as a wicked problem rather than just an ecological issue. You integrate all the different spheres, you integrate the social partners involved, you integrate the different governments, so the public management spheres, and then also the people involved in the natural sciences and the scientists, and the sciences are always very important in the conversation. And then moving on to intersectionality, there's a lot of categories also in the environmental space today, such as ecofeminism and social ecological perspectives, which are very radical in integrating these spaces. So it's allowing young women to recreate the spaces they want. So I heard a lot of people wanting parks which are safe. People want to be educated about the plants which grow around in their areas, and the animals and the insects. And in order for more women to be involved in the STEM careers and in the STEM subjects, you need to integrate them from a young age. So if a woman in an informal settlement doesn't see trees, they don't see plants, they don't see insects, how are we expecting them to then later on choose a STEM subject or a STEM career field? So I think with intersectionality, we need to then prioritize how from a young age can we encourage young girls to start seeing more of nature, to start seeing, because that's why you find that a lot of Black people, not all of them, but a lot of people of color are scared of wild animals. And it's because of the lack of exposure to these types of natural science disciplines. So I think the intersectionality part then needs a lot of young women to be incorporated into the planning of what their cities need to teach them as they grow up, before they even reach grade 9, where they choose their subject. They can be their perspectives can be broadened. And then my last point is about the inclusion and co-management part. And I think my perspective that I usually promote is the socio-ecological perspective. And I think it should be a community-based natural resource management and collaborative approach. So that means we should go from the bottom up, because a lot of our structures in South Africa and in government go from the top, where you have the president and the ministry, and then you move down to the provincial level, to the local level. And then by the time you have public participation with the person at the bottom, a lot of information is lost. There's no time and money left. And people are, the public participation process is quite short and the time is limited. So if you move from people designing the process from the grassroots and you ask people how they want to partner, you also establish longevity in how projects are managed. Because if people are involved in managing, for example, a river, which they know if they pollute the water they use for their gardens, then they will be very aware and mindful about how they take care of their natural resources. And this also includes a lot of young girls who are involved in having to go fetch water in the rural areas and informal settlements from rivers. And their safety is also now needs to be a priority in those conversations. And how can they get running water in their homes to allow them, because being a woman requires a lot of water and sanitation for hygienic purposes. So we need to be cautious of these issues when we discuss water-related conversations. So I think in this whole movement towards planning and developing urban cities post-1994, we need to move from a bottom-up approach. We need more younger voices. We need more female voices. We need to flip the agenda. Yes, the people we put in power are supposed to represent us and represent our political and social agenda, but they need to be driven by us, because your vote is always your voice. So the agendas you vote for, I think it was mentioned by the last speaker, we need to include it in the political agenda. We need to move our environmental and ecological issues into the political agendas. And South Africa is one of the countries, unfortunately, which hasn't included environmental issues into the political sphere yet. A lot of countries have been voting in green parties to be in charge of the country because they've understood the integration of different social, ecological, political, and economic issues. But I think in South Africa, because a lot of people in the apartheid time were divorced from ecological and environmental and natural resources, they still think it's a racialized and a social class issue. But we need to now debunk that myth, and we can show that we are all integrated in some way, agriculturally, natural resource-wise, or any other form to a natural resource. So we can't now put it in someone else's hand and say we are not really involved in environmental issues. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akona. You didn't disappoint. Okay, so I mean, really, the critiques you first started with the language that you are using, particularly as government, and also the lens through which we are looking at issues, and the way we work, the approach that we are employing in terms of our work, and also the fact that many a times we forget about history, and the fact that history still works with us, you know, and COVID has really illuminated that. Sometimes we talk about apartheid legacy abstractly, but COVID, it was like, you know, or is still like showing us flames that these issues are real. I'll now move over to our last speaker, Sibongile. And just to say I'm a fan. We heard about so many benefits from social, economic, environmental, and health. And so now I think we are looking to you and we are asking you, but what about cultural aspects of like collaborating and partnering? What is it that you are going to do? Thank you.
I'd like to start off by thanking the embassy, Oscar and the team, partners, and everyone in this room for extending this invite and having this session. Before I can get into the benefits, I think it's first important to understand what is culture. So if tradition is how we do things, then culture is, if tradition is why we do things, then culture is how we do things, meaning that culture can evolve. I think specifically, we know that the evolution of culture historically has been in the hands of women. We have and are in the context of a patriarchal society always on the back foot. Women are the carriers and carers of society, and oftentimes the ones more willing to push it forward. The inclusion of women from a cultural perspective means that the society, and more specifically its children, will benefit not only through increased accessibility and security, but also through cultural inclusion and an opportunity to evolve and change this culture. This is how I think we need to view at this. A city is, it's architectural, its buildings, its streets, that's its body, the people. That's its soul. So how do we then look at that vibrancy, at that personality of the people and re-energize a nation? Obviously, through its youth. We've all seen the slogan on the t-shirts that the future is female. And I'm quite excited and quite inspired that the majority of this panel has actually been women. Oftentimes, you go into a room and it's about women, but the panelists are all men. So yeah, to re-energize a nation, we would need to start with the youth. Also, something that was spoken about, which we all agree on, is that there are two pandemics in this country that precede COVID, one of them being child-headed households and another being femicide. And I think that this project, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited about it, is that I think it addresses at some level both of those pandemics. So with the increasing efforts of democratizing technology, the heart of any community project should look to address these inclusions of girls, children, and women who are majorly impacted and affected by both. It should also be the key. And like I said, I am inspired to hear that this is the heart of your project. You did touch, Gail, on digital poverty. I also work a lot in the digital space, so I know of the acceleration of the fourth industrial revolution, which we all see. And if you are in the digital space, you know it's on a daily basis. So I'm quite glad to see that uses of such things as Minecraft, which I play a lot with my son, uses of other technological tools are actually at the key and at the heart of this project and designing this city. Okay, so how we interact with the space is vastly determined by its physical structures, its architecture, but it is also by its emotive structures, its accessibility, and its people. I do believe that cultural advocates, artists, historians, and traditionalists can help us not only archive our existence through research, forms of storytelling, academic publications, etc., but they can also help us understand a place, a space, and the intricacies that make up a city and what it is. It is important to always think of the community's culture, which is shaped by the space, its accessibility, and also by its people, as not a rigid thing that cannot be changed, but rather as something that can evolve. Now, I'll give you a simple scenario. I work a lot with inner city children and inner city schools using technology and arts as a way of therapy. And what I've seen is that most of my students who come in uninspired, not knowing what they're going to do after school, sometimes not even wanting to come to school, leaving and actually becoming cultural advocates or even community leaders and people who actually want to grow and help their community. So that's one way culture, I think, benefits this. So I'm also quite glad that we're involving very young women in the project who will grow with this. Like I've mentioned before, kids are not kids. We have a child-headed household problem in South Africa. Women are primary caregivers. We've had this from everyone here, both economically, but also socially as well. So in closing, I think it is also important to include cultural activists, to include artists, to include academics in these conversations going forward. I am slightly deeply saddened that because of the digital poverty you spoke about, there is a vast majority of people in Diepsloot and in other communities who won't have access to this conversation that we're having. So I'm hoping that as we have these discussions and these inclusions, we're also looking at how we drive digital forward, and when we have these discussions, how we can include them either through virtually or other digital spaces. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sibongile. And I'm afraid we won't have time for questions, but we are here, those who are in Pretoria during the reception, we can mingle and ask our questions. And then online, we'll come back to you in terms of the questions and the comments that are reflected on the screen. But rather, we have someone else, because we are in the capital. We call ourselves the capital, people who live in Pretoria. So now we've got a speaker, the MMC for Roads and Transport at the City of Tshwane, Ms. Dikeledi Selua. We would like to invite you to say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How can I say it's never too late to be inspired as a woman through other women? And as coming from the City Ambassador, thank you so much as well, and your partners for this opportunity. It's amazing the work that is being done through the City of Johannesburg, but as well to say that what can we do as a city, especially as the capital? And you look at infrastructure development so much and you say, how do I repurpose what I'm doing? Working in a technical space, you are technically, the infrastructure depends on you. Giving access to community is dependent on you. And you work in such a high male dominated space that you're hungry for women and women's ideas. And this is reigniting that and remembering, as even as a proud feminist, to say, hey, we need to change how we approach things and how we look at our transport system, how we look at our infrastructure development. There are very few infrastructure projects where you will find a lot of women participating. Women participators quotas to say that, oh, MMC, we've got this amount of women, we've got this amount of people with disabilities working on our projects. And that's where we need to change that. But as well in repurposing our environments, saying, how are we ensuring that we are making sustainable cities? And as well, you look at challenges within Hum and Scroll. And before I was MMC, I was actually the oversight chair for utility services, which is water and sanitation in the municipality. And we had initiatives where we were looking at bringing young women into the technical field and how we can empower them. And this is something that we have a massive gap that we can fill as local government. I think as well, being a politician, I sat there and I listened to everything, and I also said, from a city's perspective, am I doing enough? Are we as politicians doing enough? Even are we as female politicians doing enough for the spaces that we occupy? And a lot of the time we get lost in dealing with sexual harassment and trying to prove yourself as a woman, even especially when you're young, that we forget the broader, greater picture that we have to do in terms of giving back. And being a caregiver is something that we are naturally there. Whether you decide to be a mother or not, in every aspect, women just have the niche of being the movers and building within communities. And I think now that we've got something from the Johannesburg Development Agency that we can pick up from in their partnership and say that, how do we benchmark ourselves even as a municipality to say, are we doing enough in terms of repurposing our public spaces, our buses, our bus routes, where we are taking development, and the kind of using where we have high water tables to have water parks, which Litzka from the city actually was one of her initiatives that she saw from the city of Cape Town, and having that and say, how do we use underground water that is usually a problem when it comes to infrastructure development and putting in the infrastructure that didn't exist because of updated spatial planning into fun activities as well for young children to be entertained and to be exposed to swimming and play and having those water infrastructure there. So there's so much that we can do, but as well coming from a transport perspective, somebody asked, how do you work with other departments? And now I'm sitting there and I'm like, Litzka, you're going to help me because we now need to go and get city strategy on board. We need to get social development on board. We need to get all the departments within a municipality on board to realize how we can make these spaces safe for the girl child, but for everybody in general. And we always talk about safe spaces as if individuals are safe spaces. We talk about safe spaces in terms of groups where we can have discussions that affect us socially. But what about safe spaces that we live in? And we've never really had an approach where safe spaces are the environments that we walk in every single day. And that as well as safe spaces even for the environment. And I think this for us, and even being a part of this, is saying, what are we taking back? And there's a lot that now I can even take back to the city and say, we have to look at things differently, even as politicians, because at the end of the day, you've got your administrators who actually are the implementers. But it's so important that we have the ideas and we source as much inspiration to take back and inspire people and have creative solutions as well to social problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MMC. And I can tell you another takeaway is that we have to work collaboratively as cities within the Gauteng city region. Thank you so much. So now, before we close, we'll get final remarks from UN Habitat. Over to you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ayanda. And thank you, Ambassador, girls, speakers, panelists, participants, and of course, everyone listening on the live streaming for this inspiring discussion on World Habitat Day. After the Her City pilot in Sweden, we're delighted that the Johannesburg Development Agency, together with the urban professionals, civil society organizations, and the girls from the community, are bringing Her City to South Africa with the project in Diepsloot. I'm really thrilled to see that no matter location, involving girls in urban development really has the potential to make the city better for everyone. And the event today has really shown, I think, that to do so, we must understand that truly participatory processes with multi-stakeholders are key to plan the city that is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. So this is really why, as the UN Agency for Sustainable Cities, we try to do our best to make methods and tools available to all urban actors and cities globally. And we really hope together that we can create this kind of global movement, scaling up and mainstreaming girls' and women's participation in building sustainable cities and societies. So with that, I would just like to finish with a brief message to all of you from the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, on this World Habitat Day. He said this morning, home to 4.5 billion people today, cities and towns are projected to grow by almost 50% by 2050. 3/4 of that infrastructure still has to be built. City leadership is essential to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And the benefits are enormous. Less pollution and climate risk, more jobs, and better health and well-being. So on World Habitat Day, let us all work together to harness the transformative potential of sustainable urban action for the benefit of our planet and all people. Thank you.